Hello YouTubers and hello vinyl community, how are you? I'm fine myself, just said bye-bye to my students and hope that they'll have a long, nice summer break. When I record this, we have one day left until the European Championships in football, until they start in France. And I got the idea to make a video that is related to vinyl records and sports, and football in particular. There was a time when it was considered a bad idea to mix money and sports. Just remember how easy it used to be to get disqualified from competing in the Olympic Games just because you were considered being a professional athlete and not an amateur. And then it was probably enough just to one time receive a little bit of money for something. Yeah, it sounds really weird to those who weren't around back then, but that's how it was back in then. It wasn't that long ago, really. Here in Sweden, the idea of professional football, professional sports and professional athletes were almost unheard of until, the late 1980s, maybe in the 1990s, when I think it was the football club Malmö FF who decided to go professional. And that was just around 30 years ago. So there was time when sports club had to work hard to survive, and when the athletes had normal day jobs. So this is important to remember to understand this video. There was a time when the sports clubs weren't rolling in money, and the music industry were quite the opposite back 30-40 years ago. Very commercial, doing quite well since people bought records in high numbers, and many professional artists and orchestras were quite well off economically, and so were the successful record companies. In the 1970s, there was this genre that were doing quite very well when it came to record sales, and that was dance orchestras, or dance bands as they were called in Sweden, or still are called. Genre that many people love or they despise it. There's almost no in between there. Well, maybe it's evened out a bit during the last years, but back, for many years, you either loved it or you hated it totally. And these were like groups containing these dance bands. They were groups containing between 4 to 7 members. They played light, danceable pop music in different dance halls all over Sweden, and that people could travel far to dance to. I've always called the Swedish dance band the true working class music, because it was normal workers who went out to dance and have fun in their spare time to their music, and the musicians were too hard-working, touring all over Sweden, doing maybe 10 to 20 performances every month, and each performance lasted around 4 to 5 Many hours. Of the dance bands became very popular and sold enormously well, their records, without even getting that much media attention. But they sold the records often where they met their dancing audience in the places where they played. So, when the local sports clubs, like football, ice hockey, bandy, etc., were struggling both with results and financially, economically, it was quite common that these dance bands made records where the profit went to support the sports clubs. And I'm going to present some examples. The first and probably most famous example is the Gothenburg-based dance band Schütz, who in the mid-70s started recording football-themed songs, and they made 2 albums to support the club IFK Gothenburg. This is one of the albums, the second one. That team would have international success in the 80s and 90s, but they were not even in the top Swedish division, Allsvenskan, back then, unless I'm mistaken here. The most famous song, Heja Blåvitt, is still considered a classic among the IFK fans, and I can imagine that the money that these Schütz albums brought helped building for the successful future. They also made this album, VM-skivan, to support the Swedish national team in World Cup in Argentina in 1978. That didn't really help since the team flopped, but that was hardly Skytts fault. The next example is the Växjö-based orchestra Ingmar Nordströms that I've talked about many times in this channel. The big football club in Växjö is Östers IF, and they had two successful eras as far as I know, the late 60s and the early 80s. In 1974, Ingmar Nordströms recorded this 45 to support Östers, since the orchestra leader himself was, well, still is, a great fan of the team. It says Östers Kör and Orchestra, and conducted by Ingmar Nordström, but it is Ingmar Nordströms who are playing and singing that as well. In 1997, 6 years after Ingmar Nordström disbanded, the orchestra was reformed again to do some gigs to collect money for the financially struggling football team Östers again, and that led to a short comeback for the orchestra as well. Yeah. The Dansband Tonics from Mönsterås made a single to support the football team Kalmar FF in 1975, and I'm not sure whether this record was recorded to celebrate the fact that Kalmar had qualified for the highest division, Allsvenskan, after 20 years in lower divisions, or whether the record was made to support the team while they were fighting their way back to Allsvenskan. Not really sure, because I don't know when in 1975 this was issued. Yeah, Jan Öylers, a dance band from Borås, made a full album to support the football team Elfsborg. Looks like this. They were probably very inspired by the success that Skytts had with their IFK Gothenburg albums. A funny detail is that the Elfsborg songs on this album are written by the same composer who wrote the big IFK Gothenburg hit, Heja Blåvitt, Hjärt längst fram. So I wonder which support was the most genuine, his IFK Gothenburg support or his Elfsborg support. Or maybe he was just, as I would suspect, a professional songwriter hired to write a song to support the club. Yes, well, the two last examples are not taken from the word of football, but when the town the dance band comes from don't have any football or any good football team, they have to make do with whatever sports club they can find. The dance band Sven-Ingvars from Karlstad made this single with and for the icehockey club Färjestads BK. Like many other examples in this video, the vocalists are actually players in the team of the club. And it's part of an old tradition that if you were a good athlete, it was normal to also make some sort of recording or singing vocal career as if it is a natural connection with being good at kicking a ball and singing. I mean, that's a connection that is very rarely based on reality, and most of the time it wasn't that good. Okay, never mind. Final record I'm going to show you. Lidköping didn't have any football team or ice hockey team worth mentioning, so when the Lidköping-based dance band Cool Candies, another group that I've talked about here before, decided to make a support the local sports club record, they made a record supporting the bandy team Villa-Lidköping instead, like this. So in conclusion, what do I think of this phenomenon? Well, even if I don't think that these records are any musical masterpieces, far from it, but they are fun. They are fun today, mainly fun. They still represent a time when the idea of earning loads of money on the skill of kicking a football is somewhat dubious. And when I see today's football stars earning more money during one day than most do during their whole hard-working life, I can relate to the idea that money and sport do not really belong together. But enough of that. Time to enjoy some football and cheer on our teams, if we do give a damn, which many of us may do. So time to enjoy some music. Well, not just some music, some football and lots of music. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Okay, just a little PS here. I like to say in the end of this video that the only football team that I truly care at least a bit about is the very local football team from my hometown Luleå called Notvikens IK. So cheers to Notas. Notas forever for the win.